Hey everyone, just had a couple quick tips. There was a discussion about how to procedurally detect the beginning of a simulation in TP. This is extremely easy to do. You don't need anybody to do anything for you. You can build it using simple components, or we'll show you how to create a simple script operator. And then the other thing is a discussion about black boxes. And as we build more and more black boxes and carry them between versions of Max and TP, sometimes they can crash. And we'll talk about what we should do in that case. Get into Max, we've got a typical production frame range here. We start at 1000, and then TP's master dynamic set to user defined simulation start of 1001, which is usually the first frame of a shot in a movie. And then we've got our viewport sampling set to per frame. So on the first frame, 1001, bang, we're going to get some particles. Yeah, we get a little position born here. And so, how can we always detect, is this the beginning of a simulation, and only detect it once? Well, the easiest way is using the egg timer. Egg timer is like a little countdown clock. If you set this to 0 and go into math bool, set the bool to true, or you might even be able, you could probably use always true if you wanted. Connect this into the start. So as soon as TP starts calculating, this Boolean true comes into egg timer with a 0, and so reached is going to fire right away. Let's go ahead and debug this. And boom, there it is. Okay, nice and easy. Now, and then it's going to output 0 because thereafter it's no longer, it's already fired at the very first moment of the sim. Okay, let's say we change our frame range. Some shots might start later. Let's say something happened in editorial. So 1022. Let's reset our debug. Come out here, 20, 21, 22. There's our Boolean again. So this is the absolute easiest way to set up and detect the beginning of a simulation. Using time interval and having to set these manually every time, no fun at all. So do yourself a favor, make yourself a little black box and just save this out. We're going to go ahead and select those two and say save. We'll save it. We're going to call it bool egg timer, so I know exactly what components. Then I'm going to add a little description for like IsSimStart, so I know what it does. Say save, yes. Now there's no particles being connected here, so particle groups after loading can be none. Okay. The other way to do this is through script operator. And script operators, I really encourage you to learn how to do this because you have the ability to create things exactly how you like them. If you think that somebody else should always create something for you, then you're going to be stuck waiting and trying to find some other creative solutions for things. And that's a lot of what the job is about, is problem solving. But I can tell you, if you do know how to script and you get into it, it pays off enormously. Okay, so this one, we've got a template where this is set up. I use keywords throughout. I put this title up here so that I can just use Control H to replace if I ever need to update this script op's name and create a new one. But in this case, we're going to call it IsSimStart. Now, the first thing about a script operator is you have to use the TP unregister, so it disconnects it from the TP system. And then again, at the very bottom, it's going to register it, which is what we want. A lot of this stuff, plugin geometry, always the same. The name is going to change there. We give it a unique name there, which it just matches, so it's easy to replace. What category is it going to appear in? And this is only part of the category. And we'll show you why, because it also depends on what class you define the script operator in. The class is defined here at the very bottom, where TP register, the name of this guy, and then this. This number here is going to indicate which basis category, or which class. And in this case, 0 is a condition. So we're going to have a condition under the category M3D. Now it needs a unique class ID, so you can use this function here. Just highlight that text, Shift Enter to evaluate just that selection. There's a new unique one if you need to create a new one. And then this stuff here is pretty standard template stuff. There's no parameters because you don't have to modify any settings that are going to be persistent between sessions. And then we've got a label. This is just going to be a description so we can know, hey, this outputs true on the first sample. Nice and easy. Some license stuff. We've got the color, what kind of color we can control. So we want it to be the condition color, which is, in our case, it's yellow. So we just use 0 for that, or you can use a different color if you like. And then we get into the TP init in outputs. And this is where we define the inputs and outputs for the operator. This one's just going to have one output called, it's going to be a Boolean type. It's going to be called, the text is going to appear as IsSimStart. And the user does not have to connect it. So we leave the port flag as none. If they do want to detect the output, then they would just connect it, but it's not required. Then we get into TP calculate, which is where the main processing happens. And all this does is it says, hey, if the TP out ID is greater than or equal to 0, meaning is somebody looking for an output from this operator. And you should also know as you get into it that there's what's an out ID called -1, which is a global evaluation that detects the connections between operators. But anyway, if somebody's looking for an output from this thing, meaning, and remember these outputs and inputs start at 0 and count their way up. So in the case of if the output ID is 0, then just use tp_system.sim_start. The way that you can find out about these kinds of things here, on the TP Mayhem website under Max script operators, we've got CBIS script documentation. And this will show you all different types of ports that you can use, flags, functions for inputs and outputs. We can get into and then here's the big one. This is the TP system. This is where we can read information about particles or set information about particles. Or in the case of the properties of the TP system itself, we come down here and we can see, hey, there's sim_start. And this is going to return a Boolean, and it's going to tell us, hey, this is the simulation start. So long-winded, but yeah, that's all you have to do. So easy to evaluate this. Now we see, hey, there's IsSimStart, came out true. Now under conditions, and then there's our category in 3D. We got IsSimStart, and then yeah, there it is. So let's go ahead and disconnect this Boolean, reconnect it, and remember our start frame I think is at 1022. So we get out to 1022, and poof, there it goes, it fires. So that's great. Okay. Now, think about black boxes. This bool egg timer, this would be a very simple black box. There it is right here, bool egg timer sim start. As you get more and more black boxes, I recommend saving black boxes in modular chunks, just so that you can easily kind of connect them together. And you'll find that they represent building blocks that can be used in multiple different places. If you build all your black boxes as giant systems, it's going to be pretty complicated, and it's only good for that system. So building smaller black boxes that are modular, they perform a function or two or three, those are great, and they're easy to debug. Now, in a lot of productions, we've seen a lot of artists, including myself, use maybe 30, 40, 50 or more dynamic sets, all filled with dozens of operators. Now, if you save that as a black box, yeah, that's going to be pretty complex. And if you then start switching versions of Max and TP, you might find that some of those may crash. Now, is that a reason not to use black boxes at all? No. Why? Because black boxes are the fastest, best way to create a lot of stuff at once. And it does exactly kind of what you set out to have it do. Now, what do you do when it does crash? Well, the first thing you should do locally is try to debug it. Turn off certain parts, if possible. If it crashes as soon as you load it, start up a fresh Max scene, load that black box, and if it crashes again, at that point, go ahead and wrap it up, give it a little description, send it into CBIS. Every time I've done that, they've been able to fix it. If certain parts of your black box are not working, this just gets into kind of general debug methodology. Start turning off parts of your black box and use the debug function inside TP in order to read the kind of data that's coming through. But anyway, in most cases, black boxes, yeah, you might have to update some. Some operators like matter waves and volume breaker have undergone tremendous changes over the years. And so old black boxes that contain things like that, probably candidates to be updated. You should always keep your black boxes fresh. I would never go more than a version or two of TP. It's possible, but just to be safe and clean. You can see that I do have quite a few black boxes already, so yeah, I do spend a fair amount of time keeping those updated, but not a ton. You just use it until it breaks. When it breaks, then you take action. So anyway, just trying to give you some tips. I hope you have a good weekend. Take it easy. Keep on making cool stuff.